Okay, today I'm going to show you how I made my frames to keep my Christmas lights in my windows on the outside of the house. I have tried many different ways to put lights on windows outside and never found one that worked very good. And I saw another video where a guy used wood frames, but he didn't really show how he made it, so I just did some playing around and figured out how to do it myself. And this is a completed one. It worked out really good. They look really nice. You don't really see the full effect till at night, but anyway, this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to go back and show you how I make one. Okay, the thing about this project, you are going to have some power tools most likely to make this. I don't know any other way to do it. You start out, you're going to have some 2x4s to make them out of. And then I've got a little tabletop table saw here. Any kind of table saw will be good. If you have a dado blade, a 1/8 inch dado blade, it would make it easier. I don't have one, but I'm going to show you a workaround that you can do that with your regular blade. And I got a miter saw. You could use a miter box to do that, but I've got my power miter saw. A drill, cordless drill, whatever. And then you're probably really going to need something like this too, these little corner braces for holding your corners in place while you glue and screw them together. Okay, now we're going to go back out front and show you how we're going to figure out how big we need to make our pieces off the window we're going to do now. Okay, here's my window that I'm going to make a new frame for. That's the window I'm going to do right there. Okay, so what you got to do is you got to measure from up there in that top corner, right there, all the way down to right here. Write down what your measurement. Mine was 83 inches from there to there, inside the brick. That's what you're measuring, inside the brick here on both sides. And then from here to here, I measured it in several spots. My smallest spot was 23 3/4 from there to there. So that's the measurements I'm going to use, 83 and 23 3/4. Okay, to figure out what size 2x4 you need to start with, you need to take your height, add your width, and mine ended up being basically 107 inches minus the 3/4. And I got a 10-foot board, which is 120 inches, so 107 will cover that. And you say, well, that's only two sides. We're going to rip this board in half, so you're going to get double the amount of wood out of one 2x4. So what we need to start out with, I make the board just a little bit long when I do my splitting and putting my dados in. And then when I cut the angles on the end to put them together, that's when I cut them to length. So I got one board marked off at 25 inches. And then I come down here and I've got another one at 84 inches. And I got the other end of that marked. And then I just put an X on this. This is my extra board. And this extra board actually comes in pretty handy. I'm going to cut that off before I split all the other stuff. It's good for testing your blade to see if you got your blade in the right spot. Okay, right now we're just going to cut our boards to length on the miter saw. These cuts don't have to be perfect. We're going to do our final cuts to length at the end. So I'm just pretty much getting my blade right on my line or close to it. I'm going to cut these three boards off. I'm going to take this extra board and I'm going to cut it in half, and you'll see why I do that here in a little while. Okay, the next thing we need to do is rip our boards in half. This is just simple math. You got 3.5 inch board. Half of that is 1 3/4 inches. You got an 1/8 inch blade, so you need half of that 1/8 inch blade off the other side. Takes you down to 1 11/16, so just a 1/16 shy of 1 3/4 on your first cut, and that's going to be between your blade and here. And what I've already done, I made one cut there, and then I flipped my board over, and the other cut fit in there perfect. So I'm right where I need to be. So we're going to take this and we're going to rip all of our boards now in half without moving the saw, and that way they'll all be exactly the same width apart. And we'll come back and I'll show you doing that. Okay, now we're going to rip our boards in half. I got two pieces to rip. I got my 25 inch piece, I got my 83 inch piece, or 84 inch piece, so it's an inch long, And then I'm going to rip my little extra piece down, and I'll show you what that's for too. It's my test piece to when we go to make our trench down the middle. So I'm going to rip these 3 pieces in half. I'm going to do this one here, and then we'll quit recording. You don't need to see me rip all of them. It's all the same stuff. Okay, now we got all of our pieces ripped in half. Got our 2 test pieces, our 25-inch pieces, and our 84-inch pieces all cut. Now we're ready to make our trenches for to hold the lights in there. Okay, now we're ready to cut our trenches that are actually going to hold the lights in here. This is what I use my test piece for. I've already done the testing and stuff on here. What you need to do, you need to set your blade to your fence at 11/16 of an inch for your first cut. And once you do that, you're going to run every board through there. I mark the factory side of each board with an X, because all your cuts have to be off that same side or things won't match up. They can be a little bit off. As long as everything's off that, your actual width of your trench is what's critical, not where in the board it is. I've already made my test cuts. You need to set your blade height at 1/2 inch, and that's what you use the little extra boards for. You just go in there and test it. Make sure you got a 1/2 inch depth. That's not super critical, but that just needs to be close to that. And then from your factory side to here, which is your first cut, right here, 11/16 of an inch. Okay, we're going to go through, I'll show you, I'll make the first cut on there, and then we'll come back and cut all the other boards, and then we'll make our second cut. Just remember, X to the fence on every board. Okay, now we got to make our second cut. I've already did a little bit on this one to show you what it's going to look like. That's 1/8 inch cut, and this is a 1/4 inch cut, and that's what we're going to want. So what we did, we moved our fence back another 1/8 of an inch from where we started on the first one. You still put your X on the same. Come in here. That gives you a 1/4 inch cut. I have a fancy tool. I got a caliper here. Most of you are going to have that, but 0.25, 1/4 inch wide. 1/4 inch wide is perfect. So we'll go ahead and cut this one this way through, show you what it looks like. Got a 1/4 inch wide slot all the way through. Big thing, now go back and do that the rest of your board. Just remember, keep working off the X side of each board. And that way this will be the same. When you line all up, you'll see why all that matters so much coming off that X when we put it all together. Alright, I'm going to cut the rest of them, and we'll start cutting our angles to get ready to assemble it. Okay, now we're ready to cut our 45s on our boards, and that's going to make our frame out of that. Okay, again, your X marked side up against the fence on your miter saw too. We're set at a 45-degree angle here. Our board is a little longer than what we need it. This particular one needs to be 23 3/4 inches. So the first thing we're going to do, put our X to the fence, and then we just want to get a clean cut. Make sure you get past your corner there. We got extra wood, so this isn't super critical exactly where that is, as long as I don't take too much off. Okay, here we go. Now we want to take, when we make our second cut, we're going to make it, flip it over where our X is still on the fence. So what we need to do now is we need to measure from our corner here Okay, we want 23 3/4 of an inch. Put my glasses on, sorry. Okay, so 23 3/4 right there. Okay, there's our mark. That's where we want the corner of our board to be, or corner of our cut to be. Again, X against the fence. That's very critical on all of this. And what I'll do, I'll start a cut a little bit long, and then I'll squeeze it in a little bit to make sure I get right where I want to be. Alright, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to make my other 23 3/4 board, and then I'm going to cut my 83-inch angles on my long one, and then we'll be ready to assemble. Okay, I just want to show you how the trench works here. I just put the wires down in here and then plug your lights in. So do one more here. You just shove your wires down in there, take your bulb fixture, and it fits right in there nice and snug. These bulb fixtures are on the flat side, or about 1/4 of an inch. Now, something to think about too, you might want to check your bulbs and make sure. I'm assuming they're all the same, but you might want to measure and make sure, because if yours are different, you may have to adjust your trench a little bit. But anyway, that's about it. Okay, now we're going to pull this out and I'll assemble it, show you how to assemble it. Okay, now we got our boards laid out. I use these little corner clamps to hold them in place. I'm missing one corner clamp, so I've only got it on 3, but that still works out. I've done several this way. Once I do those, I'll move it down here to the one that doesn't have one. Okay. Now, you see how it's all laid out, and I'm going to come back and we'll show you how we connect them together. Okay, we got everything laid out, and what I did, I glue the joint and I put a screw in, one this way on each side. So the first thing we got to do is you're going to loosen one board to pull it back apart to get your glue in there. Just turn that thing a couple times, just get it high enough. Get your glue, smear it around pretty thick, just that way you just only have to put it on one side. Okay, now, big thing you want to do here, you want to line your corners too, but you want your trench aligned more than you do the corners. So make sure your trench looks good. Hold it in place. Tighten your clamp back up. Okay, now, when you put your screws in, I go high on one and low on the other one. Okay, so we're going to go over this trench and low, obviously low. We go high, we're going to go right through the middle of our trench. So I'm going to go on the low end of the board. I'm going to pre-drill towards this. Okay, one trick I learned when you put the first screw in, do not put it all the way in, because sometimes it'll move your joint. Get both screws going in there. But don't cinch it down all the way. Okay? And go back and put your hole in for the other side. Okay? And on this one, we're going to go high into this part. So now we got one screw going in this part, one screw going on this part, high and low. So we're going to go high here so we don't hit our screw that's low on the other side into this outside beam. Now that we have that first screw to help hold the joint in place, we can put the second screw all the way in. Go ahead and cinch it down. Now I'm pre-drilling these just because it's relatively thin, so we don't want to take a chance of cracking our wood. Cinch it down. Go back and cinch your other one down. Now you can take your everything back off. Now you got a good joint there. I did not worry about putting the square on any of these. All these I've made before came out plenty square just by using these brackets, so I'm just letting my 45s do the job on that. We're going to go around and do this on the last 3, and then we'll go test it in the window. Okay, I got my frame in the window now. I got my lights on. I just want to show you how I wedge these things in here. I just made a little small wooden wedge and put it in a gap on one side. If your gap's really big, which it's not on this one, I have a tight gap on the other side. So this one side right here, I pull on it and it holds it pretty steady. And then I came back up high and I put a second wedge in there, and this side here is pretty tight. And mainly you just put the wedges in there until you can kind of pull on it gently and it doesn't move. That's good enough. That's all it takes to hold them in. Okay, that's my finished project right there. Obviously just the window to the right's done. I still got to do the other 2 windows. And of course it's daylight again. You can't really see the lights that much, but anyway, they look really nice. It makes them nice and straight. They don't hang down, sag, or fall off like they do just about any other way that you can mount lights outside like this. So anyway, I appreciate you watching, and please like and subscribe. Thank you.